In this video, we're going to be wiring our robot to work with our off-brand Arduino here. It's going to be connecting our Arduino to our LN298 motor controller, as well as our battery. The battery I have is a little bit bigger than what you'll probably be using. In theory, a 9-volt battery that you can buy at Walmart will run this whole thing for you. So let's begin by talking about all the parts you'll need to have ready for you. You'll see I've already got each one of these motors wired. Well, soldered, not wired. Your motors may come with wires already attached to them. If so, that's great. If not, there are plenty of videos on YouTube to teach you how to solder. I am not the one you want to learn soldering from. As far as the rest of the supplies we need, this is our Flysky radio transceiver or receiver. And then we're going to need 12 male to female wires. So these are male to female wires. You'll notice one end has the pin, the other end has receptacles for pins. Normally when you get these wires, they are going to be stuck together like this. My recommendation, leave them together. I'm going to have 2 sets of 6. So you see I've got 6 wires right here, all of them stuck together. And another set of 6 right here, all of them still together. And again, both of them male to female. In addition to that, we are going to need 6 male to male wires for our power. Male to male, they have, let me just grab one wire. They have pins on both ends, so that's male to male. I've got 2 different colors here, one red, one black. These wires are going to be for routing our power. Instead of orange, red is preferred, sorry. In addition to that, for the power, we are going to need 2 more male to female wires. Again, one for positive, one for ground. Alright, so we're going to begin by talking about the different pin inputs on the Arduino. You'll notice we have the digital inputs on this side right here, numbered 0 through 13. Generally speaking, if you can avoid using 0 and 1, that is ideal, because 0 and 1 are the 2 that are used for USB communications. And if you have something wired into that, you won't be able to flash your software again unless you unplug those 2 pins. Additionally, you see the little tildes next to some of these numbers. So 3, 5, 6, 9, 10, and 11. Those are the digital pins that allow for pulse wave modulation output. So these are the ones that are going to be necessary for controlling our robot, our motors. Over here we have the analog. We're going to be using the analog with our receiver here. It'll read pulse wave modulation fine. Any one of these pins will read fine. It's just a matter of whether or not they will write or send a signal as well. Alright, over here we have a couple of ground pins as well as another ground pin right there. This pin right here is voltage in, 5 volt, 3.3 volt. Those are all the pins we need to worry ourselves with today. So we're going to begin with our Flysky receiver. So this thing right here. Let's see if I can get the glare off there. Now if you look down right here, you'll see each one of the channels labeled 1 through 6 and VCC right up here. 1 through 6, these are going to be our axes of control that we use. And VCC, the only thing we're going to use that for is powering the receiver as a whole. 2 lights here. You have your LED light right here and your update light right here. This thing is going to come on whenever we've got a solid connection. Alright. So let's go ahead and take one of our male to female wire sets. So again, 6 of them still stuck together. Them being stuck together is going to make our life a little bit easier than if we pull them apart and work with them individually. For the teachers watching this, make sure to talk to your students about not pulling the wires apart before you hand the wires, because I can tell you from experience, the first thing your students are going to do, about half of them are just going to grab these wires and just start pulling them apart. So on the receiver here, if you look on the end here, we have pins. We're going to ignore the ones across the very top, and we're going for this second row of pins right here for our communications of our inputs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each one of these pins right here, make sure I'm going in sequence that the wire is, and just plugging them in. Now if you're a little bit more dexterous than me, you should be able to just plug all 6 of them in just like that. Normally I don't have that much luck. And they're all connected in there. Now the male end of this is the part that's going to be going into our Arduino, and we're going to be reading these again on the analog. So it's important to pay attention here. Channel 1 should line up with analog 0. So analog 0 is right here. It's this first pin. So channel 1 has that black wire going to it. So when I take my pins here, I'm just going to line them up like this. And if dexterity doesn't fail me, plug them all in one swoop. If you can't do them all at once, you can just go ahead and plug them in each individually. It is okay to peel them a little bit for separation to get them where you need them. For instance, these 2 right here, they crossed over when I was plugging them in, and that'll cause a lot of communications issues for us. So let's fix that real quick. Alright, so got them uncrossed now. And just plugging them in. So there we go. Step 1 for wiring the receiver, done. After this would be power. We're going to wait on wiring the power for the receiver because I want to do all the power wires at the same time. I prefer to save the power for last, just because it makes me slightly less likely to ruin everything. Up next, our second set of 6 wires we've got right here. I want to connect from the Elegoo, or the Arduino, to the R298N motor controller. Now you may have jumper pins connecting these 2 endpoints on both ends. You'll need to remove them for this operation. If you don't do that, then you won't be able to plug in the ones that actually tell your controller how fast the motor should be spinning. Alright. So just like I did with the receiver, all my pins are in a nice little row and spaced out just perfectly, so I can take all 6 of these. I can take all 6 of these and just kind of put them in at the same time if my hand-eye coordination will work with me today. It's a little bit hit or miss on that. Alright, so let's just do 3 at a time because 3 of them are being fickle. Alright, so I've got those 3 in, and I'm just going straight across with the wires, so no crossover on this end. And depending on who your motor controller manufacturer is, it may be a little tighter or a little bit looser between those pins. I've got some here that they work just perfectly, some they're spaced out a little weird. Alright, so now we're going to look at the other end of this. So these 2 on the sides, these are the ones that need to go to our pulse wave modulation pins that are going to be controlling the motor controller, the speed of the motors, which are pins 9 and 10 according to the code that we have. if you need help knowing which one, if you need a reminder on those pins, if you look at your code, the very first thing we did in the setup was we initialized our motor controller, and it told you which pins go where. So I'm going to take these 4 right here. I'm just going to plug them into pins 2 through 5. Just in the sequence they are, the ones in the middle, not the ones at the ends here. After doing that, I'm going to peel this back just a little bit to give me a little bit more wiggle room with those 2 wires. And the way the code is written, pin 9 goes along with pins 5 and 4. So I put the yellow, orange, and red. Yellow on 9, orange, red, 5, red 4. And then pin 10 is supposed to go along with 2 and 3. So these 3 wires right here are controlling the motors connected to this, and these 2 wires and this one right here are controlling this one. So that's set in now. So then after this, the next thing we want to do is work on setting up our motor wires. Now, I'll start off with mentioning that I did put the wires on the back wheels a little too short. So I've got a little extender here. Important thing for the motors is that they have a male pin at the end. And the motors that share the same side will be using the same output on the motor controller in order to make sure they're both going the same speed, because we're using tank controls on this as opposed to an RC steering system. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be plugging them into our breadboard here. If you don't know what a breadboard looks like, this is a small one. We have multiple channels that you can plug your wires into. Going across like this on one side, all 5 of these channels all 5 of these holes right here share one channel. So anything plugged into this hole will also be connected to this one, this one, this one, and this one. The channels do not exceed across the gutter. So this middle part right here, that's just to show you that if I plug something in here, it won't be plugged in, it won't be connected to something plugged in here unless I've got a wire bridging over to it. To show you what it looks like on the bottom side, these are the channels I was talking about. I'm just going to pop one out real quick, or real slowly. There we go. So this is what it looks like after you've got it out. You see it's just a little metal clip, just compresses the wire, holds it together, creating a circuit connection. I'm going to push that back in. Generally speaking, your breadboards will not have an easy way for those to pop out the bottom. This one just happens to be only have a sticky back on it, which is now gone. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set this breadboard back where it needs to be. I'm going to slide this whole rig forward a bit to center it up, and I'm going to start plugging in my wires. So on my motors, I've got 2 wires from each of them, one towards the front, one towards the back. I'm going to plug the ones in the front in one of the channels on this side of the gutter, and the ones on the back, I'm just going to go to the opposite side. And this is just so I know, this is just personal preference. I mean, you could put these side to side if you want, but I just like being able to see this row right here, all of these are together. This is going to be, well, depending on what our polarity is, this could be positive or negative at any given moment, but that's how they're going to be grouped. On the back side, again, let me move these wires out of the way here. The one towards the front, I'm going to put here. Whoops. So you can see it's in the same channel there. It's a little hard to see, but it is in the same channel. And then the wire that is on the back side, once again, just right in the same channel right there. And then I'm going to repeat this process for the other side of the robot. So this wire's in the front, so I'm going to put it right there. This wire's in the back, so I'm going to put it right here. I will point out that when I'm done, this motor right here is the one that's most likely to not work, simply because I have broken the wires off of it plenty of times already. Motor in the back. This gray wire right here. This one, it's on the front side of the motor, so I'm going to plug it in right here, which leaves the white wire on the back side to plug in right here. A little bit of resistance, there we go. So there we go. Backs paired with backs, fronts paired with front, side to side. Now again, an important thing to keep in mind when hooking up these motors, these are all potentially live wires, which means you want to be careful not to plug them into any of the digital inputs, or you might short out the board. We're only going to connect the motors to the breadboard and from their channels to this right here. Now over on the motor controller, this little blue thing right here, these are our outputs for the motor controller. I'm going to unscrew it a little bit. And what that's going to do, let me lift this up. We've got these little clamps right here. When you screw down on it, the clamp will close. It's kind of hard to see the inside of it there, sorry. That'll open it up. So I'm going to take two wires, one of my reds and one of my blacks. I'm going to just slide them into that slot right there. And then screw it tight. So now I can just shake that wire right there. It's got a good tight grip on it. They're not coming out. You're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. So we're just going to flip this over, unscrew it a bit. That'll open up my clamps. Put that one there. And this one right here. Let's nestle that back down and begin the next step. So these two go to the same side, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bridge this over here. I'm going to put the black in the back channel and the red in the front channel. And yes, I know these are not red, they are orange, but we're going to call them red anyways because I didn't have enough actual red wires. This black one right here, These wires are a little shorter. Poor planning on my part right there. So I'm just gonna bend the wire up just a bit. That should give me just enough wiggle room to get it plugged in. So again, black to back. Whoops, that's the wrong channel. And then red to front. There we go. So those are now plugged in. So up next is actually connecting power to everything. This next bit, you want to make sure you are very careful in how you handle everything. So the motor controller, the Arduino, and the receiver, any one of these, if you do this wrong, can short out or overheat. Let's look at the receiver first. Well, not the receiver. Let's look at the motor controller first. So with the motor controller, let me lift this up. On the front side, we have 3 more of these clips, and my wires are all in your way. So this one right here is our power in. This is our ground, and this is our power out. Power out can handle up to 5 volts out. Power in on these motor controllers, let me double check my number here. So in theory, this thing can handle up to 36 volts. We're only going to be using 7.4 for this particular battery right here. Let's see here. Yeah. Again, a 9-volt battery will be able to run this as well, so if you want to go with something considerably lighter than this thing, maybe try that. Alright, so let's start connecting these wires. So let's start with our hot end wiring first. First red one I'm going to put right here. This is a male-to-male wire. So that one's connected in right there. And I'm going to bend it up just a bit because I know I don't have a lot of clearance between the 2 boards. Up next, I'm going to plug a ground in right here and another red right here. There we go. And again, bend those up just because of the clearance. Based off of your build, you may not have to worry about bending them up. So, hot, ground, hot. This first wire here, the one all the way on the left, this is the one that's going to be going to the battery itself. Both of these, they're going to be coming over to the breadboard. So I'm going to take this wire right here, I'm going to run it over here and plug it right into the front side. And then I'm going to take the ground and plug it into the back side of the breadboard. That way we've got the gutter between them. Let's set that back on its pins. The only reason I've got the gutter between it instead of on the same side, it just helps make sure that I don't accidentally run a hot wire to the ground or the ground to the hot. Reduces the likelihood that I short everything out. Still possible, just reduced. From there, I'm going to go ahead and do the wiring for the power to our receiver. So again, I told you the VCC channel right here. This is the one that we are going to be plugging our power into. If you look right here, there are 3 pins to the VCC channel. These bottom 2 right here, they're going to be the ones that control the power. I'm going to plug my red, or my hot wire, into the one in the middle. And then my black wire, the ground, into the one at the bottom. Well, I just got that wrapped up in the motors there. One moment. Sorry about that. There we go. So let's do that again. Again, the ground goes on the bottom, and the hot end goes in the middle, like that. And then you're going to take your ground, connect it to the breadboard in the same channel that the ground for the motor controller is in. And then you're going to take the hot end right here, plug it into the same channel that the 5-volt out of the motor controller is plugged into. So they're both plugged in together right there, and the 2 grounds are plugged in right here. So now our receiver is plugged in and ready for this thing to have power. However, the Arduino still doesn't have the power connected to it, and we are obviously not hooked up to the battery yet. So connecting power to the Arduino. Once again, we're going to take a ground pin from that channel right there, and we're going to plug it into any one of the ground pins on our board. So I'm just going to plug it in right there. So ground is plugged in right here. Another wire in the way. Right here. Go into the same channel as the others. Sorry, the wiring looks like a giant mess. Funny enough, it could be worse. Up next, we take our live pin right here. Come on. So again, plug it in first in the same channel as all of those. And then we're going to plug this into the voltage in pin. So all of that is now hooked up. So the last thing left to hook up is going to be our battery. So for the battery, I'm going to plug this in right there into the same ground channel as the rest of them. Whoops. Missed. Now I've got this little adapter right here for this particular battery. I'm going to plug it in. Black is ground, red is hot. So I plug what I just plugged into the same channel. Whoops, there we go. So all these are in the ground channel. Ground is coming into the ground. After that, we have the hot channel that feeds into the motor controller. So this is connected to right here. And we're just going to connect it into the thing right here, and you see all the lights come on if they weren't being blocked by our wires. We take a look at our receiver here. LEDs turned on and powered. It's flashing because we currently do not have a signal to the remote. So I'm going to turn on the remote now. The remote will take a couple moments to connect to the receiver. let's see here. Right here, power to the remote. Right here is whether or not it's receiving signal from this receiver. Currently it's not, but it will in a moment. Oh. There we go, it's connected now. Now, important thing to point out, right now, it does nothing. All the switches are in the up position. I told you there's a safety switch on the controller. We'll show you that in just a moment. Let me reposition our camera. All right, so our safety switch, these two switches right here, nothing happens if I move the controller. However, if I flip either one of these down, we can suddenly get movement. Now, if I'm holding forward, my wires are getting caught in the way because I have not shut this thing. If I'm holding forward, my wheels are spinning. Maybe a little difficult to see, but these two are spinning in the same direction. These two are spinning in opposite directions. So I need to fix those two wires real quick. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to disconnect the power. And then I'm going to look at these channels right here. And I'm going to take one of the ones from the back, move it up to the front. Hello. Looks like I'm dealing with the front wheel here. And then I'm going to take the other one that's in the front and just move that to the back channels. There we go. So now, plugging the battery back in. If I push forward, yep, I broke one of the wheels. Alright, it wasn't broken, I just got it into the channel immediately to the side. So hold forward, these two are spinning that way, these two are spinning that way. A little bit of a problem, but something we can fix. Now, we could fix this by one of two methods. We can either A, swap the wires around so that everything is going the same direction. You could do that by, let me unplug this real quick. So if I take a look at the wires on this side, what I'm going to do is take my positive and my ground that are connected to my motor controller, pull them out, swap which side they're on, there we go. Whoops, wrong channel. Eventually I'll get it right. There we go. So now if I plug that back in, hold forward, all the wheels are spinning the same direction. Well, the other thing we can do in order to change the direction of one side over the other is within the code, which I will bring up on the screen in just a moment. Okay, so in the code, if you look over here, these 4 lines right here are where we have our actual changing direction of the motor and the putting power out to the motor. Now, I don't remember if I told you to change these bottom 2 to motor A. Um, that'll switch you back and forth between the two sides. Right here where it says backward and forward, if this side was spinning the wrong direction, all you would have to do in order to fix it would be change it from what it currently says to the other. So instead of backward on top and then forward on bottom, I just change it to forward on top, backward on bottom, the opposite of what these say, but that'll fix the code. I'm going to set that back just simply because the way my wiring is set up, that's how it should be. And that's everything.